Next, Straw Hat. We, of course, have the left hand man, is that term, of Straw Hat Pirates, which, of course, is our dastardly, devilish cook, Sanji, who has had 3 bounties in his time, which is going to give us a good relative standpoint as to what Sanji's bounty could be in the future. And now let's just get into it. So Sanji gets his first bounty after Ennie's lobby, which was long awaited, but actually makes sense because Sanji didn't have like that much like involvement. Like if you think about the Alabasta saga, he was like Mr. Prince for most of that, so he was kind of being very stealthy, very cool, staying out of the drama until his fight with Mr. Tube on Clay. So of course, Luffy fights the number 1 or number 0 in this instance. Zoro fights the number 1 or number 2 in this instance, and then Sanji fights the number 2 or number 3 in this instance. Gets no bounty after that. So, Skypiea, isolated arc. Sanji has a few badass moments, but doesn't really fight anybody specifically. Next, of course, we have Water 7 in Ennie's lobby. I feel like this is something that most people don't mention, but there's a whole assassination plot for Iceberg, which could tie into the Straw Hat's overall bounties. But then he fights Jabra, of course, who had the 3rd highest power level of the Ennie's lobby CP9 members. And, of course, it was very close behind Kaku's, but this was, of course, before Kaku ate a devil fruit, and Sanji still fought him and got a bounty increase. So, yeah, 77 million. 43 million behind Zoro's, which is a big gap, but still, he's got that first step. So, yeah, Sanji, let's go. So, after Dressrosa, this is his next bounty. Nearly 10 years later, actually 10 years later about, and it's of course 177 million. So Sanji only gets an increase of 100 million, while most of the Straw Hats get an increase of 50 million. Even though Sanji kind of was not even there, which is the funniest part. So, of course, in Dressrosa, Sanji has a quick clash with Doflamingo, but nothing else pretty much. So Sanji did a bunch of stuff in other arcs, but he wasn't directly credited for that. But of course, after Dressrosa, he gets a bigger increase because he's, of course, the left-hand man of the crew. Let's go. Even though he did not do anything in Dressrosa besides a quick clash with Doflamingo, and then goes off to Zoe and never comes back, but then actually does, even though he said he would never come back, pretty much. So, Whole Cake Island happens. This is Sanji's arc, of course, exploring the theme of family. And Sanji does not get a single full-fledged fight where he actually directly defeats an opponent, unless you want to count his little encounter with Bobbin where he basically just knocks him out. If you want to count that as a Sanji fight, then Sanji did technically beat a man that had more than 100 million berry bounty. So, yeah. So, I reread that section of Whole Cake where Luffy comes out of the mirror, and that's where Morgans is, of course, present, and Morgans is the one that directly is going to give Sanji the bounty because he's the one that's going to play up Whole Cake and be like, oh my god, this person did this and this person did this. And that's why Luffy and Sanji are, of course, the only ones to get an increase after Whole Cake. So Sanji gets a bounty of 330 million, of course, 10 million more than Zoro, and kind of close to 330 million. For characters around this sort of strength, I guess it makes sense for that point in the story. And Morgans is, of course, being like, oh my god, this guy, he's able to let Luffy escape with him, and he's also able to, like, easily deflect members of the Big Bomb Pirates, he gets a bounty increase. So then we get to Wano, of course. So Sanji is getting multiple more proper fights throughout this arc. He clashes with Page 1, gets captured by Black Maria, which is not a proper fight because, Sanji and Chivalry. But then, of course, we're now getting on with Sanji versus Queen, which I will be thinking is a full-fledged fight and will be very upset if it's not, because Sanji used to get full-fledged fights like all the time pre-time skip. Like, even like all of his fights were actually like really cool too, even if he wasn't fighting very cool opponents. Like you see Wanzi, full-fledged fight, epic. He uses knives and stuff. He uses his hands. You got Jabra, full-fledged fight. What's his name? Absalom, full-fledged fight, epic, cool. And after that, nothing until what's his name, Watatsume, comes along and he kicks him with Jinbei. Not really that impressive because it's Watatsume. What can I say? So then we have Punk Hazard. He doesn't really do much. You get Dressrosa, quick clash with Doflamingo. And then we get, finally, his full-fledged fight with Queen. Let's go! If this gets ruined, I'll be very, very upset. But we know Queen has a bounty of 1.32 billion, so we have a basis for where Sanji's bounty could be. So people are saying that Sanji's going to get a relatively lower bounty, like below 1 billion, but this is the thing. He's going to be the number 3 on a Yonko crew, first of all, after this. And the Straw Hats are special, and now that we have all these higher bounties, then Oda's going to be okay with giving the Straw Hats much higher bounties because we're getting into the end game of the story and because we know what the highest bounties in the story have been. So since Sanji's directly defeating an opponent in Queen, it would make sense for him to have a bounty that's higher than that opponent. And if you think about it, Queen has a bounty that's exactly 1.32 billion, so 1,320,000,000. And what did Zoro have a bounty of? 320 million. What did Sanji have a bounty of? 330 million. So what do? Add on 1 billion. Simple. That's it. Sanji gets a bounty of 1.3 billion. Let's go. That's it. Like, comment, subscribe. We're out here. But no, we're talking about his future bounties as well. So with Sanji, like the 17th opening, there was like this little clash that he had where he basically fought Kizaru briefly. Honestly, I don't think that's gonna happen. He has basically like no prior connection to Kizaru, even throughout Saba Odi, where basically everyone briefly was able to meet Kizaru, but I feel like Usopp and Zoro probably have like the most of a connection there because they were kind of there to witness everything that happened there, including Zoro's injury. So Sanji versus Kizaru kind of scrapped for me. So Sanji versus Lucky Roo is the next option because Elbaf crew, Sanji fights the number 3. Lucky Roo is assumed to be the number 3 of sorts. So Sanji fights Lucky Roo. I don't really know what to say because we have no idea what Lucky Roo is like. But since the Shanks crew has relatively higher bounties, I would say that Lucky Roo's bounty is around or over 2 billion, maybe barely over 2 billion, so maybe like 2.2 billion or 2.1 billion, and that would be a good place for what Sanji could potentially beat and get credit for. And also, Elbaf could introduce all kinds of things and all sorts of strong giants that we have no idea what they're capable of. I don't think that there are going to be any bounty increases after Elbaf, except maybe for Luffy, and if Luffy gets one, maybe Zoro and Sanji, but I think it's more going to be for people to show their skills and show that Sanji can be someone that has over 2 billion, or at least like match him. And if they do end up going back to Marie-Joie, he might fight another admiral like Green Bull, and then maybe he gets a bounty increase there. But the thing is, we really do not know much about the Blackbeard crew and who's considered the number 3. And of course, people think that we're gonna fight the Blackbeard crew at the end because that just makes sense relatively to the story, because yeah, Luffy, Blackbeard, basically the same person, but in completely different ways. You know how it goes. So, of course, people are saying Zoro fights Shiryu. People also saying Sanji fights Shiryu because invisibility. Sanji wanted invisibility, but now Sanji has invisibility suit. So I feel like they could have a brief clash, but I don't feel like that's going to be the entire final battle. So, who did Sanji fight? That's the real question. He's not gonna fight Katarina Devon because woman moment. He's basically open to any option at that point. Who's it gonna be? I feel like we've seen the most of Jesus Burgess, the Jesus Patty himself. I feel like that could be a good fit for Sanji. I don't really know, but it seems like that's kind of set up for Frankie because brawler and brawler. So let's see. We got Lafitte. He can fly. Sanji can moonwalk. That makes sense. We don't know what his bounty is, so that kind of defeats the purpose of this whole segment of the video. So let's just say Sanji's bounty is, and then let's say at the end of the story, Sanji gets 3.33 billion, so he would still have that 330 million again, but then just add on 3 billion. I'm just a guy. I'm gonna say it again. You guys probably have better opinions than me. Please let me know in the comments, please. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Like, comment, subscribe, goodbye.